World News in 5.
Right now.
News and developments making headlines around the world in 5 minutes. World News in 5. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
This is World News in 5 here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Both outgoing President Joe Biden and incoming President Donald Trump claimed their credit for securing the most awaited ceasefire in the war-torn Gaza Strip. This after the negotiators announced that the militant group Hamas and the Israeli government agreed to halt the deadly 15-month war, paving the way for the release of hostages and the outpouring of humanitarian assistance to the Palestinian enclave. In his speech announcing the Gaza ceasefire deal, Biden says the agreed document largely mirrored the context of his three-phase proposal in May last year. When asked by a reporter who would get the credit for the achievement, Biden replied by asking if the question was a joke. Meanwhile, Trump in a social media post quickly claimed credit for the breakthrough, saying the agreement was a result of his presidential victory last November. He also said the deal signals his administration's push to seek peace and negotiate to ensure the safety of all Americans and U.S. allies. Days before his official return to the White House as the U.S. president, Trump had sent his Middle East diplomat Steve Witkoff to join the negotiations in Doha. Witkoff, together with Egyptian and Qatari negotiators, including Biden's envoy Brett McGurk, worked together to finalize a ceasefire document that is acceptable to both Hamas and the Israeli government. A senior Biden official acknowledged the effort of Witkoff in securing the deal, adding the outgoing administration had wanted the incoming Trump government to take part in the negotiations as it will be tasked to implement the ceasefire agreement. Brokered by the US, Egypt, and Qatar, the long-sought ceasefire deal will take effect on Sunday. In our news, Taiwan's defense ministry says it is ready to assist the island's Coast Guard in responding to any suspicious activities near Taiwan's undersea communication cables. Defense Minister Wellington Koo made the remark after a Chinese-linked vessel was suspected of damaging a cable in the north of the island earlier this month. Speaking to reporters at Parliament, Koo says Taiwan's military would coordinate closely with the island's Coast Guard in monitoring the areas where sea cables are located. In the event of another incident, he says the Navy will immediately cooperate with the Coast Guard, particularly if it requires a response. On January 4th, Taiwan's Coast Guard said it had dispatched a ship to investigate a reported damage on an undersea communications cable off the island's north coast. Upon the arrival of the Coast Guard ship at the scene, it found a Chinese-crewed vessel registered both in Cameroon and Tanzania, which it requested to proceed port in Taiwan for an investigation. Despite the lack of direct evidence that the civilian vessel was involved in the damage of cable, the Coast Guard said it cannot rule out the possibility that the ship was engaged in gray zone activities. The Hong Kong-based owner of the vessel has denied involvement in the incident, and China's government has said Taiwan was making up the allegations without clear facts. The incident happened amidst China's military and political pressure to Taiwan. China for years claimed Taiwan as part of its territory and has not renounced the use of force to reunify with the island. Taipei repeatedly countered that it is an independent country and will defend its freedom and democracy. For Philippine Embassy and Consular news, in pursuit of strengthening trade and economic ties between the Philippines and Jordan, the Philippine Embassy there, led by Ambassador Wilfredo Santos, met with the Amman Chamber of Commerce, or ACC, to discuss an upcoming collaboration on trade and commerce. In his remarks during his courtesy call at the ACC office, Ambassador Santos talked about the need to foster a closer bilateral trade with Jordan and the need to increase partnerships between the private sectors of the two countries. The Amman Chamber welcomed this development and reassured the embassy that it has its full support. It also expressed its keenness to collaborate with the embassy on future initiatives on trade and investment, especially in key sectors such as tourism, food, healthcare, pharmaceutical, and agriculture. Joining Ambassador Santos at the courtesy call were Third Secretary and Vice Consul Sheila Marie Andales and Political and Economic Assistant Maria Julina Guerrero. The Amman Chamber of Commerce was represented by the Director General Mr. Galeb Hijazi and First Vice Chairman Mr. Nabil Al-Khatib. And that's for today's edition of World News in 5. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Win Peñano. Good day.
World News in 5.
Right now.
News and developments making headlines around the world in 5 minutes. World News in 5. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.